All right, welcome to another edition of Buck What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Buck What You Heard. You follow me, I'll follow you back. I love talking football, whether it's the Buccaneers, whether it's the NFC South, or just the NFL in general. It might even be wrestling. I will throw a few wrestling quips out there from time to time. I'm joined by my co-host, the guy that the spoon that stirs the coffee, so to speak, the guy that the GM, the guy that has all the answers. Michael Pless, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Gene. SmackDown is the better show. I'll just put that out there. But yeah, the Bucks, the Bucks last week, unfortunately lost. I think you said it before the podcast. They got beat by a better team, and we just got to move on. We got to move
Yeah.
on to Carolina, and hopefully we can get to 3-3.
Yeah, and this is my thing right here. I know that I've complained about it about other sportscasters or other shows that aren't giving the Bucks the credit they deserve, and there are sportscasters out there that will say, "Hey, the other team did better and the Bucks did not," or something like that. But I want to give credit where credit's due. That front four that the Saints had, they were relentless and they played like it. The secondary, hats off when you can shut down a Mike Evans. I mean, they did what they had to do.
Yeah, I thought the Saints' game plan was just really good. I thought, offensively, they did a good job of blocking our blitz packages and our fronts. They double teamed Shaq Barrett, which was smart. They tried to make other guys beat them, and we just weren't able to do it. We didn't get enough pressure on Teddy Bridgewater, and our secondary, unfortunately, is still very young, and they made a lot of mental mistakes that just continue to hurt them, especially inside the red zone area. And the Saints took advantage. I thought, for the Bucs offense, I thought they did some good things. We were able to run the. My only negatives, the offensive line kind of took a sharp the Rams. And then, Jameis, I thought was a little hesitant at times, but that could be due to, the pressure that he was facing from the offensive line not really creating a stable pocket for him. The game plan overall, I thought could have been a little bit better. I would have liked to see them, run some more horizontal routes and get some more easier completions and stuff like that. But it just didn't work out. I mean, the Saints did a good job of shutting certain things down. They took away the deep pass, and they just came up a little short. But I thought they fell and they competed, which I like.
Yeah. To me, and to kind of piggyback off what you're talking about, I love what I saw from the running game. I would love to see, the Bucks just kind of stuck with that. Using your tight ends a little bit more. Cameron Brate, if anything, use Cameron Brate. Get Cameron Brate out there. Something has to be open. If you've got Mike Evans covered, if you've got Chris Godwin where he's struggling to make plays, somebody has to be open. They and the way they were running the ball, that's what I was looking at on Tuesday. It just looks like there were times where people were open, but they just couldn't get to them. So I don't know. Again, it's just one of those things that they're just going to have to continually get better at.
Yeah, I agree. There's just, players and coaches are still figuring each other out. I mentioned that on my podcast on Monday. It's just these guys have to get on the same page and understand, okay, we have, this guy, and this guy that can be utilized in certain ways. We got to be able to attack these weaknesses that we see out there against opposing defenses and continue to attack it. I thought, at certain times this year they've done it, but we need to be more consistent about how we go with our game plan and making sure that, okay, if they're doing this, then we need to be patient and take what's there, move down the field methodically and score touchdowns. And they did that with their 8-minute drive in the second half where they got it down to just 7 points. I think it was 24-17 at the time. Had a great drive. And then, unfortunately, defensively, they allowed a touchdown the following drive. They could have had an interception, dropped it. So it's just little things that they have to clean up. But overall, I still think they're night and day better than what they were last year.
Yeah. And, I want to give a shout out. Eric Moreno, longtime listener. What's going on, Eric? Wes O'Connor. Met Wes O'Connor at a Cardinals Bucs game. He was just bringing that up. What's going on? Of course, Matthew Kitchell, bloody old Panthers. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Kind of getting back to the game, I just wanted to shout everybody out. TC Baby One, I think, is in here. Yeah. And Daniel Villanueva, what's going on? He brings up a great point. You have to give Jameis time in the pocket for this team to be successful. I think you have to give credit to the Saints defense. And if we're going to talk about, the Bucs didn't do this, the Bucs didn't do that, we'll get to that in a minute, but we got to look, we have to give credit where credit's due. The defensive coordinator drew up a great plan. They took Mike Evans out of the game. And I know that we saw Chris Godwin get over 100, but again, there were a lot of yards that were left on the board, left on the field that the Bucs could have potentially got. So again, it's great to see the Bucs, and they are improving. When you look at where the Bucs were last year this time, and you look at where they are now, you can say what you want to about the statistics. They're giving up these points. That's going to come. And I really believe that, with this scheme, I think that's going to get better. It doesn't look like it now. And, you guys can quote me and catch me at the end of the season and, correct me if I'm wrong. But I really do believe that they have the right scheme in place. There were a couple of times that Carl Nassib was getting home. He came close to getting home, and he missed some tackles. There was one sack that he should have had that he didn't get. So they're getting close, but they got to get home to get those.
Yeah, it's the pass rush and the coverage, they have to work together. And right now there's little things that are guys are just missing their spots, not where they're supposed to be in coverage. Certain guys trying to make these plays when it's just about getting to where you need to be on the field and focusing on that, not trying to do too much. And that happens again. I think the defense is still learning. It's a new defense, so you have to understand that it's going to take time. And right now, teams, the opponents are kind of figuring out, okay, this is what the Bucs are doing. So the coaches have to make adjustments, but the players have to continue to get better as well. So it all plays hands in hand. I mean, if you're not getting after the quarterback, then your secondary is going to struggle. I mean, that's natural football. That's just part of the game.
Yeah. And I'm good with them gambling, and putting on these blitzes and leaving your secondary on islands. And I think that eventually it's gonna all fall together. We got to consider. I mean, you've got Ryan Smith coming back. You've got Devin White coming back. You've got Dean coming back. And I think as we look at this team right now as a whole, they have a week coming up for a bye week coming up. You have other people that will be coming up healthy on the back end of the season that like Alex Kappa, Jack Sitchie, and different players like that. And I think that they will play a very important part in this team on the back end of the season. Again, folks, these are all winnable games. I do not see anybody on this schedule that scares me. And I'm going to go out on a limb right now and tell you, I believe the Bucs will beat the Saints at Raymond James Stadium. And you can take that as a hot take or whatever you want to. I think Mike Evans is going to bounce back. I think you're going to see the tight ends. I think you're going to see more of Ronald Jones, which to me, I think the Saints got off lucky not seeing as much of Ronald Jones as they should have. But I think eventually all this is going to factor in, and you're going to see a totally different Bucs team the next time they face the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's this team should get better as the year goes on. Again, there's a lot of things that, they have to learn. They have to get better. Try to get rid of bad habits from the last couple of years. They're learning new things, winning habits and stuff like that. So coaches and players, they have to be better, but I think it's going to continue to head in the right direction. you have a great opportunity this week against, the Panthers. You win that game, you're 3-3 at the bye. You're in pretty good shape. But,
Yeah.
going back to the Saints game, I think the Saints, they've been together for so long, and the coaching staff has been together. They have pieces in place that have been, there for a while, so they know what to do. And they're a very smart football team. You're not going to get them out of position, um, and they just showed like, okay, we're a really well coached team, and it showed on Sunday. The Bucs inexperience, it all showed up, and that's Saints won. That they're a better team.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that. When you look at Peyton, Peyton is to me a first ballot Hall of Fame coach. If his name ever came up after he's gone and out of the league for being in the Hall of Fame, he deserves that, because you're talking about an incredible coach, a guy. You don't have Drew Brees, and you're undefeated without Drew Brees. Okay, so
Right.
you have to factor those kind of things in when you're talking about a Saints team that, they're playing. They've been going to the playoffs. They've been contending to get into the Super Bowl. And, a few freak plays have held them out of the Super Bowl. And that's what you got to factor that in. I mean, when you look at the pass interference call, or you look at the Minnesota Miracle, those are things that shouldn't have happened, but they did happen, and that's what kept the Saints out of the Super Bowl. So this is a legit team that the Bucs went in and they lost by 7 to.
Yeah, exactly. And, the new coaching staff in place. So it's going to take time to just learn certain things. And, they're just trying to find that consistency. And that's something that's just haven't been there yet. So you just, sooner or later, they're going to finally click. And then, that's when the wins you'll start, doing good things as far as winning games and being consistent that way. You can see the attention to detail is getting there. They had less penalties, like you said, this past week, which is good. There's a lot of things that are encouraging. They're not really turning over the football, which is good. They are forcing turnovers still. They are stopping the run. They're running the football. They're doing those kind of things well. Just have to bring it all together where all three facets of your team are playing as one. And I think they're close. They're getting closer and closer each week.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I'm glad you brought that up, because let's rewind back to Game 5 of last year, and teams were running all over the Bucs. They were just running at will, and these weren't just 5-yard plays. These were chunk plays that were putting them on the other side of the field, where it gave them a short field to go in and score or do whatever they needed to do. These are just things that the Bucs really have improved on. You talk about facing Alvin Kamara, and what they did with Alvin Kamara was really commendable, considering what he's done in past seasons. You go up against a Todd Gurley or a Christian McCaffrey, just different running backs that they faced, and they've been able to do better against these running backs than they have in the past. Now it's just a matter of getting your secondary to where they're making plays and getting stops and getting these offenses off the field. And I think once you have that, you're giving Jameis Winston more opportunities to get out and make plays as you do that.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's just about finding that correct balance that, any good football team needs. And I think they're on their way. It's just guys have to be in better position to make plays. We can't have these guys running scot-free like we did against the Saints because of certain mental errors where guys, trying to either do too much or they're just not in the right position they're supposed to be on the play. So it all goes hand in hand. Communication, guys understanding what the coaches expect of them, and that's a continued process throughout this year, especially when you have first head coaches or new head coaches for your team. It's going to continue to build, and I think that's where it's In the second half of the year, you're going to see a team that, okay, this is what the Bucs are supposed to look like with the given scheme and what they're being asked to do. I think it's going to be more consistent. If we can see that as fans, I think you can be happy with that because it's a lot better than what we've dealt with over the last 5 years. So
Yeah. And Willie Horace made a great point here. He said, let's point out the most obvious. They played a two quarterback game plan, and the Bucs did not adjust to that. They didn't do enough during the game, and they should have controlled the clock better than what they did. The Bucs did not have an answer for Taysom Hill, and that's obvious. I mean, just what he was able to do, and that little wrinkle that he brought in. And again, Willie, thank you for that point. That's a great point. Um, how do you fix that? How do you adjust to that?
mhm.
Do you put a spy on him? I mean, the next time they face each other, you put a spy on him in order to keep him from getting out there. And I noticed a couple of times the Bucs didn't set the edge, and they were getting killed with that too.
Mm. Yeah, I think they had a game plan for it, but guys just didn't execute as far as being where they needed to be. And that's a credit to the Saints. They did a good job of game planning and mixing it up and really keeping the Bucs off balance. So, and that's just what good teams do. And unfortunately, our youth in the secondary, it showed. Guys just trying to make a play so hard that they're moving out into bad positions on the field, and it's leaving other guys open. So it comes with experience,
Yeah.
and they're getting it right now. You just got to hope they continue to get better and understand. Okay, this is what we need to do. Bruce Arians called them out this week, saying they're soft. Yeah, I mean, at times they were, and that's something that's got to get fixed. And I think they'll address what they need to do going forward.
Yeah, and this is a good time to kind of evaluate, where the Bucs are as a team, because we've seen a
Mhm.
total. This will be the sixth game coming up, so you've seen a total
Right.
of games to where you can say, okay, we've seen some good games, we've seen some bad games, and some games where there's been improvement. The one thing that I will say is that the Bucs have improved in a lot of positions, not all. Uh, they've had
Yeah.
good games against, the offensive line has had good games, and then they've had games against a defense that was just they were hungry, they were ready to go. So uh, we're still trying to figure out who this team is, and I think that they're going to, as I mentioned before, they're going to continue to improve.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I agree with you what you said as certain areas. I think obviously, the play of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have been outstanding. The running back group has been much better than we thought it would be. Obviously with the emergence of Rojo. Offensive line, I think, has been steady for the most part. Again, you
Hmm.
just want to see that consistency across the board, and really,
Right.
it's about a mindset week to week, when they come in. You like to see that urgency that they had against the Rams, and really, instill that into their play every week. But again, this is a team that's coming off, a lot of bad habits, a lot of losing seasons, and they still have to learn how to win games. And you know, they're learning how to finish games, and for the most part, I think last week was the first time they were down at halftime. So, they're doing the things that winning teams do. It's just about finding ways to amplify that up to the next level where they can do it consistently. If they can do that, then, we'll see good things coming forward.
Yeah, I agree, and they just have to continue to improve. We've
Yeah.
talked about the penalties, and just looking at how they've consistently got better about penalties. And there was a run that Rojo got, and I was like I was waiting for the flag. I was waiting to hear
Mhm.
a holding or something like that, and they got the run
Right.
off, and it just that's a good feeling, as you're moving forward.
Right.
Your special teams, Matt Gay. What Matt Gay is making kicks. And I look at
Right.
Canizaro, who's jobless right now, missing four kicks with the Tennessee Titans. So
Yeah.
certain things are starting to come around,
Yeah.
and we just as a fan base, And I know you don't, nobody wants to hear this, but right now you've got a good scheme here. You just have to be patient and let all this come to fruition and see what we come up with. But,
Mhm.
again, that was a good game against a very good team. And, as far as the measuring stick goes, it just shows that the Bucs have some things they need to improve on. But I wouldn't say that, there's any team right now left on the schedule that's going to run them out of the gym. They made mistakes and they just have to learn how to correct those mistakes to move on.
Yeah, I think obviously the front seven of the defense is really going to have to pick it up. I think they're going to have to be really consistent in their play, making sure that they are creating havoc on the quarterback. That's one thing that has to be a staple if this defense is going to be successful. It's just the way this scheme is played and how aggressive they are. It leaves your secondary on islands, and you got to be able to
Got to get
really
home.
get after the quarterback. Yeah, you got to get home, and that's something that has to be better. And they had a tough test last week against the Saints offensive line, and they did a really good job of just containing what the Bucs were bringing. So those things have to be better. And I spoke of the offense, and offense just being consistent with what you want to do as far as your identity. If you're going to run the football, okay, let's run it. Let's use that play action passing game and stuff like that. Let's keep it going. But for the most part, I see a lot of good things. Coaching, some of the coaching staff decisions, I would like to be a little bit better, a little bit more consistent. There are some things that have kind of bothered me with, how they operate. And, and that goes back to, a first year offensive coordinator in Byron Leftwich. So I think he's learning as well, so there is some growing pains, I guess you could say, with him, and hopefully that continues to grow and get better too. Defensively, there's some things that they do, and like, okay, we don't need to be doing this, and same thing on offense. But I think that's just goes to the learning process of the coaches learning how these players like to be utilized, and same thing with the players learning, okay, this is what the coach wants. So those things have to come together, and once they do, then we'll have something brewing. But that's the thing, like these teams that we're going up against, they have coaching staffs in place for several years, and
Right.
and that's something we just haven't been afforded to. We
Yeah.
haven't had the
And a quality,
stability.
you should say quality coaching staff. Let's,
Quality coaching staff, exactly, and we just
let's be
haven't had the
honest here.
fortune of. Yeah, we just haven't had the fortune of that, and
Yeah.
hopefully with Bruce Arians here and his staff, hopefully we can have this in place for at least 5 years or so, and then you can really see what we could be capable of going forward.
My guy Andy Findlay from Glasgow, Scotland. He said, "Do you guys think the two tight ends could have helped Jameis out if Byron got them involved to allow Jameis to get it out of his hands quicker, since the O line couldn't handle the defensive line?" It was interesting.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I listened to the press conference from Bruce Arians, and Bruce Arians said there were some schemes out there where they had two tight ends out, but they didn't pull the trigger on it because it just wasn't a good look. Which to me goes back to what I was saying about how the defensive coordinator really schemed this out. You have to give credit. You have to give the devil his due. As much as you may not like the
Yeah.
Saints or whatever, they came with a rock
Mhm.
solid game plan, and the Bucs just have to do
Yeah.
better as as when they face them again. But I do believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took their best shot in this game, and I think they can win the next game, the next time they face the Saints.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and that's a great question by Andy, but yeah, the two tight end sets is something we would definitely like to see more of. I think, obviously the talent of OJ and Cam Brate, I think should be utilized more, especially in the middle of the field where that's usually the money spot to go to. But yeah, I mean, the Saints did a good job of just taking things away. I mean, there was a lot of times where we had the play action and they were just ready for it, and they had guys back in coverage, and we just didn't really execute well enough. And
Yeah.
I think the Saints are just a step ahead, and that's a credit to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Willie Horace is saying Jameis is still not comfortable with the offense yet. In the past, the media have blamed him for a lot of stuff that it actually it came down to, let's see, blamed him for a lot of stuff that went wrong. Dirk still didn't instill trust like Bruce Arians is doing now. You're right, and I think that you can sense that. Quarterbacks can sense that. You look at Haskins in Washington. There were rumors out there that Jay Gruden didn't want him, and you could kind of tell by the play calling and the schemes and how they just threw him out there. He was supposed to sit for a year and then come out, and that just didn't happen. They pretty much just kind of threw him out to the wolves, and so it's just little things like that. I know they didn't do that to Jameis here, but you can tell when your coach does not have the greatest confidence in you.
Oh yeah, that's an easy identifier. I mean, you can sense it right away, and that's the most important relationship on a football team is the quarterback and their head coach. So that has to be really strong. If it's not, then usually you're going to run into issues. And we saw that with Dirk Cutter and Jameis, and you see it, at other spots around the league. I think you could potentially see it with Baker Mayfield and their coaching staff. It just looks like, yeah, I mean, you got to have 100% confidence in your quarterback. If you don't, then you need to find a new quarterback because it's just not going to work out.
Yeah, I totally agree. Wes O'Connor, and shout out to the Bucaholics. There are actually a lot of Bucaholics in the chat. Shout out to all you guys. As usual, you guys show up and show out, and you guys are appreciated. Wes O'Connor was saying Watford is the vet, and Wells starts 8 games, I think, last year at left tackle or right tackle. They may surprise us, and I'm not holding my breath, but they may be, but maybe. Again, it's interesting. Bruce Arians was kind of nonchalant about it when they were asked about these linemen that are coming into play. Do you just have faith in your coach that he knows what he's talking about, and just kind of, because we've seen in the past where coaches have said certain things and it just didn't come to fruition, but they watch more film than I could ever watch in my entire life. So in a week. And so they have a better idea of what's going on. How comfortable are you on a scale of 1 to 5 with this line this week?
I would say probably like a 3, but that's probably pushing it. It's next man up. I mean, these guys have to step up and play. I think Watford would be fine. He's a veteran. He's been there before. Wells, I think, will be okay, but they're going to probably have to assist them in some way as far as protection scheme, and we're just going to have to be smart about it. Carolina has a really good front four, and they know how to pressure, and I think they lead the league in sacks. So we're going to have to be, prepared and ready to go. But again, it's next man up. So I think that's why Bruce Arians had the nonchalant approach to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Willie Horace, another question. How do you protect the right side of the line now your guard and tackle, your starters are hurt?
I mean, we just spoke of that.
Yeah. So, that's kind of...
I think. Yeah, I mean, the way you do it is you have your running back and your tight end probably chip as they go out into routes. You have them chip the defensive end, or vice versa, do something of that nature.
And you got to get actual good chips, because from what I saw last week, that last game
wasn't good.
Those were no bueno, to be very honest.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah, so it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I mean, for me, I'm just gonna watch. I mean, the secondary is the elephant in the room. Vernon Hargreaves, and I haven't said a whole lot negative about Vernon Hargreaves, because I want you guys to understand. I didn't want the Bucs to draft him. I wanted Sheldon Rankins, and I keep saying that was my guy right then and there when I was looking at my draft board and who was available and who the Bucs went with. So just to show that I'm on board with the coaching staff, with the general manager, I haven't said a whole lot negative about Vernon Hargreaves. He's got potential, and I hate that word potential with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, only because a lot of guys' potential never comes to fruition here in the Tampa Bay area. So you have to go out and show what you can do, and we've seen a lot of opportunities for Vernon Hargreaves, but He struggled so far this year against receivers.
Yeah. hmm Yeah, I mean, with VH3, it's going to be interesting, especially as the year goes on. If he continues to struggle, it wouldn't shock me if they eventually. I think this might be their plan, as getting Jamel Dean out there on the outside, and then you have Carlton Davis on the other end, and probably move VH3 back into the slot, and then you have some more options there with MJ Stewart and Sean Murphy Bunting to rotate in, from time to time. So that wouldn't shock me, and that could be in reference to talking about guys being soft and stuff
Yeah,
like that,
yeah,
and VH3 definitely could be one of those guys that he needs to pick it up a little bit. You see, and same thing with Sean Murphy Bunting. I think he's one of those guys as well. But you see guys like MJ Stewart and Jordan Whitehead are just like giving
lighting
everything
people
they
up.
have as far as being aggressive and really attacking the football. And I think that's what Bruce wants. I mean, just if you're going to make a mistake, okay, that's fine, but you better be going 100 miles an hour and doing everything you can to make a play on the football. And I think that's what he's looking for. And when I look at Jamel Dean, I think he is the prototypical guy that Todd Bowles wants in this defense, a guy with length and size and has the speed. So that could be your future, lockdown corner right there. And then with Carlton as a good, number 2 corner, and that hurt when he got ejected out of the
Yeah,
game. That changes the whole game plan,
yeah,
and it just didn't work out from that point forward. And you could see like the Bucs defense kind of, it seemed like it took a little bit of breath out of their air once he was ejected, and they felt it. Like it hurt pretty bad for them.
yeah, yeah. I totally agree with you. I mean, the complexion of the whole complexion of the game changed once he left out of there. I
Right.
really believe that you saw. I don't know. You saw what you're going to see from Vernon Hargraves. And we
hmm
talked about this last year. When you have a player
Yeah.
that's been in the league over 3 years and you see them for who they are, that's who they are. When they show you that, that's who they are. And you either move on from them or you stick with them and hope they get better. I don't, if and I know we're only in game 6 coming up, but I just don't see Vernon Hargraves, stick if he continues at this trajectory. I don't see him sticking around here in the Tampa Bay with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean next year is an option year, but they can easily get out of that if they want to. So yeah, I mean, and I don't want to look forward to next year already, but
Oh
yeah, I
no,
mean he's definitely got to step up his game, and he's got to bring it. And I think this week against the Panthers, that'll be a good indication. They have a really quick and decisive receiving core. They're really helping out this young quarterback in Kyle Allen, and involving Christian McCaffrey more with the passing game. So it's going to be interesting to see how they try to match up, and hopefully the secondary brings it and has one of their best games of the year.
yeah, and I know a lot of people are in the chat. We're talking about the offensive pass interference. Before we move on from the
Yeah.
VH3, that was the worst, most and see. I know I'm not going to get fined for saying it. These trash refs, the refs over the past 5 years have involved themselves in games more than they should. Okay,
hmm
and you can go back and look at any game you want to. There have been games that were playing players going back and forth, teams going back and forth, and a referee decides the game. And that is
Yeah.
trash. That is not what the NFL is. You should not be able to do
Mm.
that. And to me, referees should be fined, and it should be public that they're being fined or reprimanded. There has to be some repercussions for ruining these games. There has to be.
hmm Yeah, that's well said, and I agree with it all. I can understand the Carlton Davis ejection just because he did leave his feet, and
Yeah.
you can't do that.
And he did
And he
lead
did,
with the crown of his helmet.
yeah, helmet to helmet hit. My partner Mark, he was all upset about it and furious over it. He's like, what do you expect him to do? Just get run over? And I'm like, well, you can't leave your feet these days. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just the NFL game, and you can't do that. But as far as the pass interference on VH3, I just like, why do we have these reviews if we're not going to get the call right?
Yeah.
And that's
Because it's
something
Michael
that
Thomas. It was Michael Thomas going up against Vernon Hargraves. That's why it
yeah,
happened. And I really
yeah,
believe that the refs are scared in New Orleans because of what happened before and just how bad it was. And the refs, were probably not treated well. I'm willing to bet money they weren't.
Hey, that's a good point. But I mean, clearly on video you see, VH3 just gets stopped in his tracks from the extended arms of Michael Thomas, and they still just let it happen, let it stand. And that's another thing. Like, you go into this rule book, and like, I just don't think the refs have a really good understanding of what is and what isn't, as far as what needs to be called. I see so many times nowadays in games where the ball is clearly incomplete, but a defender picks up the football, and all of a sudden we think, oh, it's a live ball, let's take it to the house, and just they waste time that way, and
Well,
it's mind blowing.
they kind of have to. What was the play
Yeah.
where? What was the play where it was blown dead and it should have been a touchdown? And I can't remember what game that was. But
I don't know. It feels like it's every week now, but like, seriously, like, the fans don't know what incomplete pass is. The ref don't know. I mean, it's just
it's
it's just
gone
not
from
good. I mean,
incomplete pass. Remember, it used to be a reception. What's a reception?
yeah,
You have to take 2 steps, roll on the
right.
ground, stand on one leg, and then stand on one
Do the
foot.
YMCA.
Yeah, pretty much, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So
insane. So
yeah, and
go
I
ahead.
haven't
No, you go.
heard I haven't heard. Did Carlton did he get any kind of fine for that hit? Because to me the hit looked in it didn't, looking at it in slow motion, it looked like he didn't have a choice. I mean, I didn't see him
Right.
really leave his feet, but I did see where he'd lead with the crown of his helmet, so I get that.
Uh-huh.
However,
Right.
because it happened so fast, how do you avoid that? And a lot of that could
Right.
be
Exactly.
on the receiver. A lot more of it could be on the receiver and how they put themselves in that position to where they get hit.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's what makes it so tough, because like, these receivers or what have you, running backs, when they see guys coming, they automatically refer to, protecting themselves. They have to protect themselves as far as, okay, we need to protect our head and body. So they go into a defense position, and then you have a guy that's coming in to make a play, and he's in an aggressive attacking style position where, okay, he needs to make the tackle and hit. So it's just hard for these defenders to just, on the blink of an eye, like, change their whole position as far as how they're going to make the play. So it makes it very tough on them, and I don't think it's good for the game. And it goes back to the roughing the passer penalties too. It's like, okay, now we can't hit the quarterback when he lets go of the ball, and we can't go on him full weight and all that stuff. And like, how do you expect a defender to flip in midair and not land on the quarterback? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and again, that's something that all needs to get fixed, man. It just
Hmm.
does. There needs to be more
Yeah.
consistency. I really hope with the collective bargaining agreement, this is an opportunity to fix a lot of stuff that's mixed up. And I don't think it's going to happen. I think there's just so much money on the table.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening. You can always dream about it, but I just don't see it happening, to be very honest.
Hmm.
So we just kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. I really believed, calling into New York to get the final say on a call would
Right.
benefit all 32 teams. However, we're seeing where there's obviously a penalty, and New York just disagrees with it. It makes you question things,
Yeah.
I'm serious when I say this. There are some calls that I've watched, just watching some of the games that New
Hmm.
York has made, where they're just suspect calls, and I'm like, where
Yeah.
the hell do you get this from?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think it's a turn off. It's a turn off to fans, and I think you're seeing less.
It's a slippery slope. You
Less.
got to be careful with that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and yeah, it's definitely hurting the game, and fans just want consistency. If you're going to call it this way, then that's how it needs to be. How it needs to be done going forward. But it's just not happening. And will they make changes? I don't know. It seems like they make changes every year, but
But
it's
they're
just not
all
the right
reactionary.
changes.
They're knee jerk reactionary decisions.
Oh yeah,
They're not
oh yeah. I
proactive.
mean,
There's nothing proactive about the NFL.
right, and no, we've been a part of it as Bucs fans. The whole Bert Emanuel, catch
Oh
or no
Jesus
catch,
Christ! Do not get
and
me started on that.
so that started a whole thing, and then like you said, last year we had the Saints and Rams incident with the pass interference, not pass interference, all that mumbo jumbo. So now you can review that, and yeah, it's always something. Now that's the helmet to helmets, and yep. So it's always something.
Yeah. So I guess you just kind of have to take a deep breath and just just let it go. I guess. I mean, they make a
Yeah.
bad call and they turn around and make a pity call the next time around to make up for the horrible
Mhm.
call they made. And I think you should just make the right call initially.
Right.
So
And that's what I thought. That's what I thought review was for. But
yeah.
yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, and like Andy was saying, I feel they have to look at ejections again. If you look close to the tight end Cooks dropped so low that Davis ultimately has nowhere to go. The non-call against Hargraves was horrific. That's what
Mhm.
I'm talking about. The speed of the game, has to factor in to an ejection. It
Yeah.
really should. I understand what we're saying. You lead with the crown of the helmet. You're trying to take that out of the game. But if you have a tight end who comes down and he's totally changed where the trajectory of the helmet's coming, where it would have been down here, I guess you have to lead with your shoulders. I guess maybe that's the answer here. But again, that would have been a clean hit if he had just stayed upright where he was and not brought his helmet down to where they ran into each other. But
Yep.
again, it's neither here nor there. It's all in the past. Um,
Yeah.
let's talk about London. Jolly old
Yeah.
London. I love the UK, by the way. It's one of my favorite spots. I actually love Scotland a little bit better than I love England. So just FYI.
Mhm.
You know what I mean there, Andy? But but seriously, I'm excited about this game. This is a telling game right here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You've got a team that's missing two players off of your offensive line so that
Right.
they protect the quarterback. You've got a lot of players that you're questioning as far as their coverage skills. And let's just look at London in general. The Bucs have had a horrific record going over to London and playing. It's just not been good.
Right.
Then you have a game where the Bucs were in it up till the final whistle, and they lost by 7, and it's a game that the Bucs could have potentially won. These are things that they have to overcome, things that in the past they haven't overcome, and things that have led to 2, 3, 4 game losing streaks because you can't right the ship. So
Right.
I think they have enough veteran leadership on both sides of the ball where they can turn this around. This is a winnable game. Again, don't think for 1 second just because Christian McCaffrey's been getting all these yards, he may do it again this weekend. I don't know,
Yeah.
but all I'm saying is the Bucs, if they go out and execute, if they go out and make tackles, if they make plays, if you're involving your tight ends, and what do you call it? All 3 phases of the game: special teams, defense, and
Right.
offense, all plays in concert. The Bucs can win this game.
Yeah, I think there's no question they can rebound and take this win on Sunday. I like the plan of what they're doing so far this week. I think they're flying out. I think tomorrow I want to say, but yeah, I like their strategy, and I think it'll be a good business trip. I think that's how they'll approach it, and they got to win. They got to get back on track, and I think there's a lot of motivation here. Getting that win before the bye, going into the bye with a win is critical. You get back to 3-3 at 500. You're right there in the division. You go to 2-1 on the division, which is critical.
You have a winning record
And
in the division.
yeah, exactly. And it's a huge step forward. I think it'll be really good for this team, especially going into the second half of the season, which does get a little bit easier as far as opponents. And, um, I think that'll be a good thing, going forward. And like you said, they'll get healthy. They'll get some guys back. JPP looks good. He looks like he's on track. But going into London, I think you just got to block all that out and just realize, okay, this is another football game. This is against the Carolina Panthers. This is what we have to do. So if they can really do that and focus and understand, okay, this is what we need to do better against these guys, and really zero in on the goal, which is winning the game, I think they'll be fine. Again, it's just a lot of good things they've shown on tape so far. It's just about putting all that stuff together and really
That's it.
correcting the little mistakes that they've made so far that I've heard them. So it should be a good game. I expect another close game. Carolina is a good team. They've been playing really well since Kyle Allen has been at quarterback. They made some changes defensively and really simplified things as far as getting after the quarterback. So it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a good test. I think the keys are really, shutting down Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, that's going to be number one. Getting after Kyle Allen and forcing him into some mistakes. And then offensively, I think, you just got to put up points. You got to go in there and score in the red zone and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Let's attack their weakness and just continue to do so. Don't get caught up in saying, okay, Scotty Miller needs a catch, or this guy needs something.
Take
Focus in on your
advantage of
best
mismatches.
playmakers. Yeah, just get the ball to your best playmakers, which is Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, OJ Howard, and Cam Brate. You focus on those guys, you get them the football, and I think you'll be good to go.
Yeah, I'm totally right there with you, man. And that's kind of how I'm looking at it. The Bucs, they have to take advantage of mismatches. They have to create mismatches. I mean, you've got two very physical tight ends. You need to really be using those tight ends a little bit more than what you have been. If Mike
Right.
Evans isn't open and you've got Chris Godwin and he's kind of getting open, somebody's got to be open. And all I'm saying is
Yeah.
getting those tight ends out there, get a five. Hey, I would rather have 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 5 than 3rd and 10. Okay?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even if you
For
get a
sure.
little bit of if you gain a little bit, that's better than nothing. And that's all I'm saying.
Mhm.
And to me that is what we're kind of not seeing. And I think that's where fans are
Yeah.
getting frustrated. You've got a first round pick in OJ Howard. Let's get him out here. Let's see what he can do. You paid all this money to a Cameron Brate, and let's get him out here. He's capable of making those plays, and we didn't see it last week. And again, I'm gonna leave that alone until the end of the season. We can
Mhm.
talk about it, I'm sure. But if BA says, hey, there were times where we could have pulled the trigger, but we didn't. Okay, I'm cool with that. Let's just improve next week and take advantage of mismatches, because that's what the NFL is all about, is the mixed mismatches and taking advantage of those.
Yeah, for sure. Like this week, for example, Carolina has James Bradbury, who's a very good corner, and he has done well against Mike Evans. So you got to find ways to attack the other corners. I know they have Deontay Jackson, who's a really good corner too, but find ways to attack their slot corners. I mean, I think JV and Elliott is their slot corner, who is a former Buck, but he's small in stature. So, you can take advantage of that size mismatch with, a guy like OJ Howard or vice versa. Yeah, their linebacking core is pretty good with Shaq Thompson and they have Luke Kuechly, and I forget who the other guy is. They have another good guy, but so that's a strong linebacking core. But again, you can attack them in coverage. There's ways to get them. So you just got to continue to attack that. Obviously, run the football. I think we've had success. We had success against them the last time we faced them. So yeah, and they didn't really see Rojo that much. So maybe we get him the ball more. I like to see our backs get more carries and get over 30 rushing attempts. I think that's when we're usually most successful, is when we run the football at least a good number of times. Uh, but it's just just playing smart, and I think they will. I think they will on Sunday, and I expect them to get back to 3-3 going forward.
Yeah, and again, this is going to be a very scary game because again, the Bucs do not do well across the pond. Um, as I mentioned before, I would love to see him using those tight ends. Use the tight ends. That's what they're
Yeah.
here for. Uh, Perryman is out. I understand Perryman has been very underwhelming since coming to
Mhm.
Tampa. Take advantage of your tight ends. Use your tight ends a little bit more. There are opportunities out there. I promise you. Mike Evans is a number one receiver. Chris Godwin is a number one receiver. If you're covering these guys, pick your poison. Why aren't you using your tight ends or possibly your wide or your running backs? I mean,
Right.
Dare's got nice hands. Not very good as far as blocking or anything like that. I mean, he's still working on that. Those things
Yeah.
happen. But still, I mean, Rojo has shown that he can catch the ball out of the backfield and make plays. And these are things that the Bucs really need to be looking at. Hey, I'm not a head coach, but I'm telling you, these are things that I didn't see. And maybe there may have been something with the scheme. It may have been the score and how you're running plays at that time. I'm not sure, how that all works for them. But just getting everybody involved in finding those mismatches.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and that goes back to my point of Byron Leftwich still learning, how to utilize these guys best. He is this is his first year as offense coordinator, and it takes time with this kind of stuff, and hopefully they continue to just get better and better as they go along here. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's just you got to be smart in how you approach your offensive game plan, and I think at certain times last week they got a little bit too impatient with how they wanted to do things, and if a team is allowing you to be patient and move the ball slowly down the field, then that's what you got to do. You just got to
Take what
take
they
it.
give you.
Yeah, and it just seemed at times they were trying too hard to get that big play, and really turn the side of the field into their favor. And sometimes you just got to keep getting first downs, and that's what it should be about. I think that's what they need to focus on a little bit more. Obviously, you want the chunk plays, but if they're taking that away, then you got to have something underneath that should be open, and we just got to find ways to consistently be smart as far as where we go with the football. And that goes back to Jameis. It goes, offensive line, understanding, okay, this is where we're going, running game, etc. So it all works in tandem.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is a work in progress, and you kind of have to temper your expectations for this team. This is a first year team. Every so often, you'll see a coach come in and totally flip a team around and put them in a position to get to contend for playoffs. Um, I don't know. It's still out. It's still possible. It's up in the air what this team's going to do. But like I said, every
Right.
single game the Bucs are going to play, they're in that game. And you
Mhm.
guys can look at me like I'm crazy or whatever, but I think they have the tools right now to be competitive with anybody they go up against and potentially win those games. So, guys, you just have to be patient and let's see how this all plays out. But I'm not counting the Bucs out just yet.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's the biggest thing. Like they're in the game, so like they're gonna compete, and it's gonna be close football games. It's just a matter, can the Bucks finish them out and get the wins at the end of the game. You look at last year. I mean, there were so many games that the Bucks just weren't involved or even close to being towards winning. So. And we haven't seen that, so far. It's been really competitive. We've had leads, I think, for 4 out of the 5 games going into the half. So there's a lot of good things that the team is doing. It's just these things that for whatever reason is holding them back right now, and they just got to continue to push forward, and they'll get it. They'll get it going here, I think, pretty soon, and then that's when we can start seeing collective winning streaks start to occur.
Yeah, and I believe that this team is capable of rattling off 3 or 4 wins in a row. They just
Right.
you know they just have to have that mindset that they need to go out there and do it. What did Indomik and Sue say? It's about the mentality. and I
Yeah.
believe that they have to get there. Ryan Jensen, I want to shout out Ryan Jensen because this guy has been balling. And I
Hmm.
know a lot of people were upset with the move to bring him to Tampa, but I think it was the right move. Here's a guy that will play past the whistle. He's not scared of any of those defensive linemen. And he does what he does. And then you've got Alex Kappa who was feeding off of that, and you saw more of that from him. Ali Marpet is another guy who's been quietly having a consistent game this year. You don't hear his name, but he's going out there and doing what he's supposed to do. So these are positives that you even heard the media talk about Ali Marpet, but he's been quietly and consistently in 2019 having a good season. This is a guy that I wouldn't see how you could have a problem with him being in the Pro Bowl, just how consistent he's playing in his position.
Yeah, Ryan is playing really well. I think that whole center to left side has played much better this year and doing a lot of good things. So just got to hope that continues and they get even better, like we keep saying, just throughout the season. I think they will.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, this is Buck What You Heard. I'm on with my guy Michael Pless. You can reach him at Real Bucs Talk. If you get a chance to check out his latest podcast, really good work, guys. I mean, I think you guys did a great job. I know Mark is too good to hang out with us peasants over here, but I think you guys do a great job.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we have a podcast twice a week. That's usually Monday and Fridays. But yeah, it's just a lot of X's and O's kind of talk, and we talk some shit as well. But it's just having a good time talking Bucs football. So
Yeah, he's like night and day. Like on here, he's the voice of reason. He's the calm guy. But you got to check out his podcast because it's totally the other way around. Especially when the Bucs screw up really bad, that's the podcast you want to listen to because they call it like they see it. And I know you get on here, you say what you say, but again, you guys do an awesome job.
Appreciate it.
And I want to go through the chat here because I want to make sure I've shouted everybody out. I know that Andy, I'm surprised you're up so late. I don't know what time it is. What is
he's
it about?
in Scotland, right?
Yeah, he's in Glasgow. Yeah, or outside of Glasgow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
what's the time difference there? It's like 6 hours ahead, or
I think they're like 9 or 10, not like 9 hours ahead, I believe, for East Coast.
okay.
Yeah. So
He's almost morning for him. Okay.
Yeah, and I know that he gets up early. So Matthew Kitchell, Eric Moreno, Callie Buck, Wes O'Connor, TC Baby One. Can't sleep. Excited about London. 3:35 a.m.
Okay.
Wow. So
That's passion.
Yeah, Andy, when are you guys going to London? 5 hours. Yeah, 5 hours East Coast. Okay, I'm thinking flights. 5 hours difference. So thank you for clearing that up. Of course, Andy Findlay. He's the captain of the Bucaholics. The cool thing, and I just before I go back to this, I want to shout out the Bucaholics again for what they're doing. I think that is a great organization. They really combined football with doing charity work and helping people who are in need. And I'm going to give you a good example. When right before the Rams game, there was a fan, and her son were supposed to go to the game, and her son passed away. And just a week before the game, and the Bucaholics went into action, and they really did some amazing things that you would not expect in this day and age. You would not expect from anybody. And I can't stress it enough what they've done for people. I've got another friend, and his son was in and out of the hospital, and the Bucaholics were able to come in, and do what they do to raise money, to have raffles, to help people in need, and just bringing people together. The fact that they have like chapters in 20 different states, and we're not even talking about the UK, and what's going on in the UK, where they have a Bucaholics over there. I think it's just incredible, what they're doing to unite Bucs fans, whether it's all over the world or in the United States, and it's just great. And you saw that with that Rams game. So again, shout out to them, Rex Dillon in Arizona, Andy Findlay, who's the captain over in the UK, and any of your other Bucaholics that are out here listening. Shout out to you guys. You guys are doing a great job. And I want to get back to the chat here. David Villanueva, one of our newer listeners, thank you so much. I love what you bring to the chat. Thank you so much for that. Willie Horace, as usual, somebody who also brings very positive and very, very, I like the way you think. It's not like you're bringing hot takes in here. You can tell you're not on Facebook. We're here. We're talking logical about stuff. So I really appreciate that. Frank G, Brandon Fuller, and let's see, who am I missing here? Willie Horace, Rex Dillon, Brandon Mann, who's also a Bucaholic, and he tunes in on a regular basis. And his wife is out to get me for some reason. She's got it in for me, and I've never done anything wrong to her. So I don't know what that's all about. I'm the victim here. BucsFan 727, Buck the World 2.0. Let's see. Am I missing anybody? Tall FL guy, who's a longtime listener. Again, you guys are really appreciated here. Neil L, Joe Patterson, who is a Raiders fan. You never know who you're going to get in here. I mean, we had a Cleveland Browns fan in here last week. You've got a Raiders fan in here just hanging out. So everybody's welcome. All 32 teams are welcome here. Well, Atlanta, even Atlanta, you Falcons fans, if you behave yourself, you can come in here too. I don't care. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. This is going to be a fun season. Enjoy every single game. The Bucs are going to get better. And I really have a feeling that this is different than past seasons that we've seen. And I know you can't see it all right now, but I think they are continuously getting better. The Bucs are working on it. You may not be happy with the personnel, but let's enjoy what they're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, again, thank you for all the listeners in the chat. All your support, appreciate it. Keep it coming. And I think the Bucs are heading in the right direction. I think it's different, like you said, from the past. But yeah, enjoy every game because it's already the 6th game of the season, so it's going quickly.
Yeah, it really is. So, Michael, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and, give us your final thoughts before we roll out of here.
Yeah, catch me at Real Bucs Talk. Anywhere on social media, you can find me at that handle. My podcast is available on iTunes, Podbean, and Google Play. Also, check out this podcast every Wednesday, which is awesome. So, final thoughts. Just enjoy. I mean, just have a good weekend. The game is early, which is awesome. You have some breakfast, watch Bucs football. So that'll be cool. And I think they're going to pull off a win. I think they're going to bounce back because I think they do have strong leadership, unlike they've had in the past where they go to London and I think guys just party a little too hard. And I don't think you're going to see that this week.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot more focus. But it was kind of cool to see OJ catch that foul ball. I want to give a shout out to him. His hand, I thought he had on a baseball glove, but it was actually his hand. The way he caught that ball. So
go Rays. They got to win tomorrow.
Yep, they got to win. So we'll see. And me as a Yankees fan, I am actually rooting for the Rays just because of Tampa deserves this kind of thing. I think when you have that support, I think if the Rays can continue to do what they're doing, man, I think you're going to be looking at something big here in Tampa. The Rays may end up staying here. I would love to see that because, again, it's Tampa to me is the jewel of Florida and it always will be. So I would love to see the Rays stay here and even come over to Hillsborough County. That'd be nice. Yeah. But anyway.
I
Yeah,
agree.
Buck fan 727. I would love to see the Bucs sweep McCoy and the Panthers. I
Mm.
would too, and I know that sounds petty, but I just would because petty knows petty, and you see how petty Joe McCoy has been. I have no problem with that. So anyway, for me, I want to thank everybody because you guys have really made this fun. I really enjoyed the chat myself, and again, you guys have brought up some great points tonight. No real crazy hot takes, and that's something that I'm always going to appreciate. You guys are awesome, and listen, if you could do me a favor, if you're not subscribed to the podcast, if you could do me a favor and just subscribe to the podcast and hit that like button and subscribe, that would really help me out a lot. I really appreciate that. So again, you guys are awesome, and I thank you for everything that you really do. And that's pretty much it for us. Like I said, this will be a fun game over in the UK. I love it over there, and a lot of Bucs fans that are making that trip from Tampa over to the UK, and I think this is awesome. So again, that's pretty much it for us. I mean, ultimately, as Bucs fan, we want that win. We want to eat that W. So let's make that happen, okay? And that's pretty much it for me. And I want to thank everybody again. And remember, Buck what you heard, and we are out of here.